I got a strange going on out here. Something just killed my dog.
Something killed your dog?
Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining the Cryptid Podcast tonight. I'm your host, as always, Daniel. And, guys, welcome to the show. I just want to say thank you to everybody that subscribes to the channel. Just let you know, I opened up a new membership. So if you'd like to become a member of the Cryptid Crew for just $2.99 a month, you guys will get exclusive access to a Saturday-only release. As the channel grows, I'm looking at some merch and also try some other perks for my members. Before we get into the story we have, again, if you guys have had an encounter and would like to come on the show and share that encounter, or you had an encounter, you just want to get it off your chest, shoot me an email at thecryptidpodcast72@gmail.com. thecryptidpodcast72@gmail.com. So our guest tonight is Curtis. Now, Curtis, you may recognize him if you watched the most recent episode of Mysteries Unknown. Curtis is a correctional officer out of the great state of West by God, Virginia. And he had a pretty, I'm going to say it's a pretty substantial encounter. You don't hear a lot of encounters with juveniles. So without any more waiting, you guys, let's welcome Curtis to the show. Curtis, what's up, buddy?
Hey, what's going on, Daniel? Thanks for having me on.
Oh, my brother Hillbilly from West by God, Virginia. How you been, man?
Going good, man.
Good. So you had an encounter, from what I understand, with a juvenile, correct?
Yes, sir.
About what year did this happen?
Probably 1995, 96.
Okay. You know what, man? I'm just let you get into your story. So everybody, let's get into it.
All right, man. Yeah, so I was probably 10, 11 years old, and I was at my grandparents' place, and was near Beckley, West Virginia. And my grandparents lived on top of a mountain out in the middle of nowhere, and no real neighbors around. I think they had 3 neighbors within a couple miles, and only one you could see, and it was far off, So I would spend a lot of time when I was a kid just out in the woods hunting and playing and building forts and just exploring around, And back when we were still allowed to go out and run around by ourselves as kids, right? But right beside my grandparents' property, there was an old logging road. And it ran down beside their property and then kind of cut around to the back of their property and then went down through the mountains. And on this day, when I had the sighting, I was going down that road. There was an old trash pile, probably went a quarter mile and a half a mile down this road, and where people used to go throw trash out back in the day. And there were always cans and stuff down there to shoot at. I'll take my BB gun, my 22, and go down there and shoot. And that's where I was going this day. And as I'm walking down the road, right before you get where this trash pile was in a big switchback, a big curve, and it kind of leveled out. And was probably a 50-foot by 50-foot area, so it wasn't huge. But right before you get there, the road gets really steep. And we had a lot of rain that had rode the road out. And I remember I was looking down at my feet, trying to making sure my footing, with a bunch of big rocks and ruts everywhere. And as I'm just kind of creeping out there, going real slow, and I get this feeling like something's watching me, and like it hits me hard. And so I stop, and I'm looking at my feet, and I look straight up, and standing probably 35 yards in front of me, back behind the trash pile, I saw what I believe to be a juvenile Sasquatch. At the time, I didn't know what it was. Not even sure if I knew what Bigfoot was at that age. But I saw it. It was kind of hiding behind a tree, not a real big tree even, but which was kind of funny because it's hiding behind this tree, and it's not even covering it, but it's got its head sticking out, and I can see its whole head and its left shoulder, and I can see its right hand wrapped around the other side of the tree. And I'm standing there looking at this thing. I'm like, man, what is this? I don't know what this is, and I'm not scared yet. I'm just kind of curious. And we look at each other for probably 15 seconds, and after we looked at each other for a little bit, it steps out all the way from behind the tree, and we just continue looking at each other. And after about another 10 or 15 seconds, this thing takes an extremely aggressive stance, and its facial expression completely changed. And when I tell you, this thing went from, first off, just to back up and tell you, give a description a little bit. It was, I would say, approximately 6 foot tall, with long orange hair, and not real. It was real skinny, long arms, not real filled out, just a look real skinny and lanky. But anyways, when it steps out, like I said, we look at each other, and it's just got this look on its face, like it's almost a little scared itself, or nervous. And after about 10 or 15 seconds looking at each other, the expression on this thing's face completely changed. It almost got like a smirk, almost like a little smile, and then and immediately turned just mean. Man, this thing just looked. I mean, almost like, I don't remember what its teeth looked like, whether they were flat or pointed, or I don't remember that. I really don't. It's been a lot of years ago, but I remember I saw its teeth. I remember it showed its teeth, and that's when I decided it was time to get out of there. And I remember I turned and ran back up the mountain, and it's pretty steep for the most part. And I remember at one point when I got back to those ruts, I slipped on a rock and fell, and I thought I was dead at that point. I was like, man, this thing's got me. And so I got up and ran and and got all the way back to my grandparents' house. And when I turned around and looked, I didn't see anything behind me. But that was the only time I ever saw anything. Um, Fast forward to I was probably 20 years old, and it was early archery season, and I was up there hunting on my grandparents' land, and I'd shot a deer about 9 o'clock one morning, and I watched it go down about 75 yards from my stand. And I decided that I was going to back out and go back to the house and get a bite to eat and give it some time, and then I'd come back and recover it. And the reason being, if it would have ran another 20 yards, it was going to go straight off a mountain. And you're familiar with West Virginia, you know how these mountains are. And I didn't want to drag it back up that thing. It was steep. So I back out and go to the house and talk to my grandpa and give me a bite to eat. And I tell him that I got a deer. And when I come back, when I got to my stand and just a little past my stand, I looked where the deer was laying when I left, and I didn't see it. I thought, well, that's kind of weird. Well, I walked up to where it was, and I'm confident it had expired where it was laying. And then I got to looking, and I saw drag marks, like something had drug this deer about 20 yards. And all of a sudden, it was gone. It vanished. And I, immediately, my mind went back to what I saw when I was a kid. Now, I don't know. It may have scooted along and jumped up and ran off. I don't think so. But that's pretty much it.
All right. Lots of questions, man. Like, for real. So,
before we get any further, I almost forgot something. I forgot to tell Josh this the other day. The deer that I shot, I don't remember if it was later. It was later that year. Rifle season here comes in the week of Thanksgiving, and I had been out of the woods for a little bit. When I go back to the woods, I'd been out, right, been up there in a month at this point, maybe. And when I go back to my stand, when I tell you, right at the bottom of my stand, you see this head right here?
Yeah, sitting up there. Yep.
Yeah, that's the deer that disappeared. I forgot to tell you about it, but that was like it brought it back.
Okay, did you say a year later?
Well, no, this was probably, let's see, it was early. It would probably be a month and a half, 2 months later.
So, like 2 months later, you go back out to your stand, and at where your stand is, below your stand at the base of the tree, that little trophy is there.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Now, listen, anything could have drug it back, right? Like, I'm not saying that's for sure what it was, but I feel like, maybe I thought, here, this is all you wanted anyways, and I needed the food, right? I don't know.
Man, come on now. I love hearing things like that. I legit do, man, because I mean, these things have an intelligence with them. They are not stupid. They're not. And if you want to hear some amazing encounters with just how intelligent that these things are, I got a couple episodes coming up next week. It'll blow your mind, like for real. They blew my mind. But so
Yeah, that's the only reason I kept that. I mean, you can see it's just a little 6 point. It's not a monster, right? It's nothing.
yeah,
But the reason I kept it was because of the story. Like,
yeah,
it's not proof, right? I'm the only one that saw it. But
right.
yeah,
But don't just count that because you're the only one that saw it. Because you have these things where I like to say that the realm of probability within this community, this subject, is wide open. It's wide open. So there's no reason for anybody to sit there and say, well, there's no way that happened. Well, I've had all these encounters. I go out every single day and I have an encounter every single day, and I've never seen anything like that. Number one, I don't believe you that you go out, say, 300 times a year and you have an encounters every single time.
right.
I know some people who I met through doing this podcast where they're very, very, very active investigations. Like there's a group, Sisters of the Moon. Those ladies are, I'm telling you, those are some rugged ladies. They are some tough ladies. They go out, and when they camp, they string lights up and they play music and they put wind chimes up. They're doing everything they can to attract any attention from these things. And I got the utmost respect for them because they've even come out and said sometimes they come in, sometimes they may be out there, but we don't even know it.
Yeah, and those people are way more credible than me, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Well, I mean, don't say that. I mean, because I'm. We'll talk off. We'll talk in the lobby after this. So
No, I know what you're saying. I do know people like Harley, for example,
yeah,
right? I believe him.
yeah.
I believe in him.
Oh yeah. Here's the thing. There's just something about people who live in the Appalachian Mountains or live in the Ozarks or live in the Blue Ridge Mountains. You know, they don't have any reason to tell stories. They don't. That's just not in their DNA. You're not going to have like Popcorn Sutton. Okay, you know who Popcorn Sutton is.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Okay, so a lot of people, they're gonna, who's Popcorn Sutton, and they're gonna go to the old Google and look him up. Popcorn Sutton is a legend. Do you think if he would have seen one, he probably would have kept it to himself,
He would have had 100%.
and if he did mention it, you could bet your bottom dollar it's 100% truth on what he's saying, you know. But so let me get to these questions. So when you saw this juvenile, you said it was about 30 feet from you.
Yeah.
And did he step out in front of you, or did you walk upon him? I wasn't.
I walked up, like, when I was walking up to the area, like I got the feeling like I was being watched,
Right.
real
Okay.
heavy. And so I stopped, and as soon as my eyes came up, I saw it. It was just standing. It was standing still, trying to hide behind a tree, right, with
Right.
its head poked out. And then
Right.
once it realized that I saw it, once it was 100% confident that I was looking at it, I feel like that's when it stepped out.
So what made you think, or what made you think that, why would he have changed his facial expression? Like you said, at first he kind of had this grin on it, and then he came super aggressive.
Yeah, I thought about that. I don't know. I think it was. I don't know if it thought maybe I was trying to challenge it. I don't know. And then I also had we can't say some words on YouTube. I had one with me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think they know what that is, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it instantly became aggressive once he saw it.
Right.
Maybe. I don't know.
And that does make sense because, maybe here's the thing. At first he didn't see it. and he kind of gives you the smirk, like, "Oh, okay, you got me," and then all of a sudden he notices it, and I think that is more of, it's kind of like you got that little Chihuahua, and
Right.
and it comes up off the porch, but you got
Mhm.
that big old dog that sits up on the porch, and you got that little Chihuahua down there who's all of a sudden just bowing up and trying to make himself look bigger and tougher than he actually is. But then when you step to it, it goes running off yelping, and then the big dog comes off and gets ready to throttle you. Maybe it was more of a bluff, like, okay, I'm going to show myself to be way bigger than he is, way more aggressive than he is, and he's going to leave. And I think maybe
Mhm.
that's what he did, because here's the thing: what time of year was this? What time of year was
Summer,
this?
summer,
Summer.
probably. It's been a lot of years. I would, if I had to guess, August, September.
Okay, so you've got a lot of undergrowth already growing up through
Mhm.
there, and if my memory serves me right, the area you are, it gets thick in those woods.
Really thick. Yeah.
It gets super thick, so there's no way you're gonna be quiet
Mhm.
walking through those woods. So he more than likely heard you before you saw him, and I'm almost willing to put a dollar to a dime that he saw you before you saw him.
Oh,
You
I'm
know,
sure of it. Yeah.
so when you shot this deer, or when you went to harvest this deer, about how far did you follow it before you realized, "Yeah, I'm not going to find it?"
Well, like I said, it went. It appeared to have been drugged for
Right.
about 20 yards, and it's like
Okay.
something just picked it up. Like it
Okay.
stopped. Um, there was no evidence. We'll say right
Right.
beyond that point. And I still done a grid. You know what I mean? Just because I don't want to shoot something and then not recover it.
Yep.
So I done a grid, probably, I don't know, probably 100 yards, 100-yard grid,
Yeah.
probably, and nothing. Didn't find anything.
So you found where it fell. Of
Mhm.
course,
I
you
watched it
found.
go down from the stand. I mean, I watched
Yeah.
it, you know, pretty certain I watched it expire from the stand, but I
Yeah.
still wanted to give it time and,
Yep.
and pull it out for a little bit. But
And then you get off. You get out of the stand, and that's when you lose sight of it. And as you're making your way towards it, about how far away was this?
when I say I pulled out, went back to the house for about an hour.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I wanted to, like I said, it was could have went just a little bit further in the direction it was running. When I say that it was drugged 20 yards, it was drugged kind of off what would have been my right. But if it would have ran 20 yards straight, the way it was already going, right, it was going a straight line.
Right.
It would have went 20 more yards that way. It was straight off a mountain, and from where it
Right. Yep.
stopped at. And
Yep.
so I wanted to back out and make sure. But when I got there, it would have been back from my stand looking at it. Would have been drugged back to the right, and so which wasn't straight up and down. It was kind of rolled a little bit before it dropped on down. But
Yeah. No, man. And then you show me the little
yeah,
trophy up there, man. That's crazy. It's not the first time I've heard where, hey, it's like you hear, like, especially if you're up in Alaska or any place that has like a wolf population, um, they hear a gunshot, they know there's food.
hmm
Now, 9 out of 10 times, the food source that they're expecting is going to be a gut pile, right? And so I've heard stories of where, just like you saw it go down, you saw it expire, you leave it, you come back to harvest it, and you see it dragged off, and then it's gone. Now, from you seeing it being dragged off, what did the drag mark look like? Was it, because the reason what I'm getting at here is, what kind of predators do you have in that area? Because I'm trying to make a point here.
well, really, the only thing would be coyotes, and one coyote isn't going to drag a deer off,
Right,
right? And a bear is probably not really going to mess with it. And we got some bobcat. We don't have anything big enough as far as predators go
right.
to drag a deer off. I mean,
And
a bear could, right? Like a bear could,
but during the
but-
summer, because you guys have, West Virginia has black bear,
right?
right?
There's
Okay,
berries. There's everything. Yeah.
they're going to go and eat, especially that time of year. They're not really looking to go and gorge himself on that type of protein, because they're going to eat everything they possibly can. Now, if it's a sick bear or if it's hungry, it's not having a good time or, a good thing gathering what it needs to gather, then I could see it dragging off. But they're not going to sit there. You're not going to see, because they're going to tear into it first.
Right.
And give it the can. So you didn't see any carnage like that. It
And
looked
that's and beyond that 20 yard, there would have been a mess, right?
Yeah,
there would have been a mess. Another kind of creepy thing is, you talking about hearing the shot. Remember, this was archery season.
Mhm.
So, I mean, was this thing watching me? Right? Did it know? And I
Man.
hunted there a lot growing up and stuff. Like, I don't go there much anymore, but grandparents have passed on and stuff. But I mean, I've always wondered how many times have they been there and I didn't know.
Every time.
Yeah, yeah.
It's funny because I missed that you said it was archery season, because I'm sitting there writing down. So I'm trying to finish my question that I have. And you went, so again, I apologize for not paying 100% attention. That was archery, but that's crazy though. I have, in one of my earlier episodes, I had one of my buddies. I love talking to him when he gets time to chat with me, but he was out at like a hunting club, and he shot, he hit a deer, and he went out and he went back to the club, and he's like, "Hey, can you guys?" And this is like 3 hours. He went back up to this club, and he's like, "Hey, does someone kind of help me, get this deer back here?" And one of his buddies like, "Yeah, sure, not a problem." So they go back out there, and he's like, "Hey, you got to come and look at this, man." And he said it looked like something had ripped open the cavity and scooped everything out and just left the deer there. But everything else was gone.
Took it with it?
Took it with it.
Well, that's the kind of stuff I need where I hunt. I want on that hunting club. If they're gonna clean it, gut it for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm good with that.
But he said, man, it was crazy that everything inside was gone, but the deer was still there.
That's insane.
Wow. I've heard stories from like Montana and Alaska where someone shot an elk, and they go to get their elk, and it's gone. Like, it's gone. They track it. They see the trail that it's leaving. They see where it expired because it all pulled up. It's like something picked it up, hoisted it up on its shoulder, and just walked off with it.
That's a lot of weight.
That's 800 to 1,200 pounds, man.
Yeah.
So that just kind of gives you an idea of how strong these things can be, So let me ask you this. So after you had this encounter, after you get your trophy back, again, if you're like I am, we're hunting for the meat.
Right.
We could care less if it's got a nice rack on it or not. If we see a big old thick deer, we're going to take it and we're going to fill our freezers up with it. Right.
Right.
So you get this trophy. What was your immediate thought when you go back out there, and like, explain to us when you started walking back up to your deer stand? Explain to us, what are you doing? So you go to this place, you start walking to the deer stand, take it over from there.
Yeah, but when I walked in, it was dark out. So actually, I didn't see it until I was in the stand. And so a little after daylight, I look down there and I see it. It's probably, it's not like right at the base of the tree, but it's on the trail that I use to get to it, and it's only, I don't know, 5-10 yards away. Like, it's close,
Okay.
And it's almost like, I don't know how I didn't trip on it coming in. Like, I'm not saying it was. I mean, it was there when I came in. Nothing came in while I was in the stand. You know what I mean? But and to be honest with you, I immediately got down because when I saw it, I was like, "There's no way."
Now, exactly what did you see? Now, did you see what's hanging on the wall, or was there more to it?
No, there was still some stuff left on it. I'm like, not a lot. I mean, it was it didn't look like it had been messed with. You know what I mean? Like it looked like it deteriorated naturally. You know what I
Okay.
saw. And you got to remember, like I said, it was only. I want to. I mean, that's it's 20 years ago, but I want to say it was a month and a half, 2 months, right? So I mean,
And
there's
if you're
still some stuff left on it. But,
looking in summer, so you are going to have insects. You may have some predation on it, But how much of the skull was attached? Was any of the skull attached, or was it just the skull cap?
the what would be like the tip of the nose is
Okay.
broke off.
Okay.
Yeah, like the nose but that's a fragile part anyways, right?
Right.
Like that's
Oh yeah.
but yeah, that was gone. But other than
Yeah.
that, everything else is still there.
Whew, man, that's crazy.
Actually,
That
I don't see any. I don't think there's any teeth on the right side.
okay.
There's a little bit
So
on the
you
left, on the
so
right.
you kind of got like almost the entire top of the skull.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. I,
yeah, and it's almost like and what I felt like was like, hey, we appreciate it. You know,
yeah.
if you could help us out again, it's almost what I got from it. Like here, I'll give you this back if you just give me another one.
Yeah.
But
Well, you never know. It could have been one, like you said, juvenile, who just maybe hasn't honed its skill on hunting alone, or it could be an older one or a sick one.
right.
So again, they're looking at an opportunity here. So yeah, that's pretty crazy. So after that happened, that how did that change? If it changed it, how did it change you in the sense of you now going out into that part of the woods on that property or going out hunting in general?
It really didn't until I got because here's the thing that happened when I was roughly 10 years old,
Yeah.
and I'm not exactly sure. I think I was about 10, and it's almost like I blocked it out for a lot of years. Like my brain like stored it away and wouldn't let me remember it. And then it
Right.
wasn't until kind of recently that I started remembering this stuff. Not 6, 7 years ago. Like I started remembering it, and and was certain. Like obviously I remember the stuff with the deer, but I'm talking about the actual encounter. So it really didn't affect me much as a kid and a teenager and stuff. But as I got older and as I started remembering it the last handful of years, I still go out. Um, might not go as deep as I used to, in the woods, but I still go out, and it's just now when I get that feeling like I'm being watched, and it's a really strong feeling, and what I'm talking about, the eerie feeling like you're being watched.
Oh yeah.
When I feel that now, I bail out.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't
for
care.
sure.
I'm out of there. But yeah. So as far as that, it hasn't. It didn't affect me too much. I don't guess.
Let me ask you this: would you want to see another one?
I would.
Yeah.
I would. Not at 25, 30 yards. I'd rather not just walking up on it. But I would like to see one just to be sure. I think. Like I know what I saw, right? But yeah, I'd like to see another one.
Awesome. Hey, so what do you think? What do you think these things are? Again, there's no right or wrong answer in.
Right. Um. I don't think they're all the same. I think some are flesh and blood. I think some are more paranormal. Because here's the thing too. I don't used to, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. Used to, I would hear some stories that were like so far fetched. I'm like, that's crazy. Like that didn't happen. Well, after you hear the same story 100 times from 100 different people,
Mhm.
the same cloaking and all these things, like, well, there has to be something there. And
Yeah.
I don't think that a flesh and blood creature can do those things. But like I said, I also don't think they're all just flesh and blood. I think there's different variants of it, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I remember my great grandma calling them boogers.
I think.
You know, and I'll tell you more about that stuff on the lobby and stuff like that. I plan on doing an episode with mind counters, because I've had a lot of people say, "Hey, how come your encounters aren't on? So, I mean, I don't mind talking about them. Before, kind of like you, I buried it. I tried to talk to a couple people a few times, and I just got ridiculed, laughed at. You're crazy. You're making stuff up. You're a liar. And that's one thing with me is, my wife will tell me, she'll tell people, I am the king of BSing, you know, and I tell her, I said, I'm telling you right now, I said about 96 to 97% of what I'm telling you is honest to God's truth. And you got that 3% that maybe, or 2% that's probably exaggerated a little bit. And you got 1% that's just absolute bogus shenanigans.
You got to make the
You know?
story better.
Exactly. But I got no reason to lie.
Right.
And it took me 30 years before I came forward and actually talked. I talked to Wes Germer about it. I was on a show, and but yeah, it changes everything that I experienced or saw up to 92 didn't really change anything. It was my encounter with my little brother
Yeah,
that
that's
really changed.
crazy.
That really changed everything. Um, I mean, it is what it is, man. But other than
Well,
that,
I'll say this too, and I think me and you talked. We were texting about this the other day a little bit. People around here and other places too, but I'm talking about just where I live. Um, don't talk about that stuff, right? Like you don't talk about. That's like my grandpa. When I got into archery hunting as a teenager, um, he always made me carry a sidearm
mhm,
when I went archery, and I think that's why. I
mhm.
think he knew they were there, but he never would admit to it. And later on, I finally, before he passed away, I asked him about it, and he's I haven't seen anything, but
Yep.
he wouldn't talk about it.
If you can kind of tell, you know, when they're like you said, your papa went and well, no, I ain't really never seen anything, and
Yeah,
you're in the back of your mind, you're like, bull crap. Yes, you have. You're not telling me the truth. I know you have, just your mannerisms. But if they come out and say, no, I haven't seen anything. You know, you tend to believe them more they hadn't seen anything than when you got that old codger up there just going, well, I haven't really seen any. Yeah, you're full of
yeah,
garbage, man.
yeah.
So let me ask you this, man. So if you were to have someone come up to you and say, hey, I've heard some stories. I'm gonna go up in these woods. I'm gonna look at them. What is a word of advice that you could give that person before they decide to go on their little expedition?
I'd say, man, I don't know. Word of advice. I mean, you definitely make sure you're protected, right? And I don't know how much is enough for these things. you know, I'm really I don't know, but yeah, I'd probably say be careful what you ask for.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and I've done it too. I've went out with the intentions of okay, not necessarily went out with the intention, but I've been in state parks and been out hiking. As a matter of fact, me and my son today, he'll be 3 next week. I took him to a state park this afternoon, and the whole time we're there, I'm kind of I'm looking around, checking the woods and stuff. Like
Hmm.
we went on a couple trails out in the woods, and the whole time I'm kind of looking, looking for
Yeah.
signs and
I mean, here's my thing with that, man. Me personally, hearing the stories that I've heard, reading the stories that I've read, watching videos that I've seen, and experiences that I've had, there is no way I would take a small child because gone just like that.
right, right. And once again, we didn't go way off the beaten path, and where we
Yeah.
went was kind of crowded, right? It wasn't. I'm not saying it could still happen,
Oh yeah.
but it's a pretty popular place.
Yeah.
And it's just a. I mean, the trail is it's dang near paved. It's so
Hmm.
it
Yeah.
kind of goes through the woods a little bit, but
Yeah. I mean, there's people I've heard that their spouse, while they were with them, something happened, and they're so freaked out that they won't they do not like to drive through the woods at night. They don't like to drive through the woods during the day because of an encounter or experience that they had. It's just completely wrecked them. They're so terrified. Even if they're driving, they don't want to go. But
Yeah.
I mean, with me, I don't go off the beaten path. Not anymore.
Yeah. Well, I've heard some of your stories too. That's yeah, I don't blame you. But my thing, I guess, I would never trust any Bigfoot, but I don't think they're all bad.
No,
I
no,
don't think I've heard so many stories of them doing things to help people. What scares me now that I didn't used to think about, but really the last year or two, is the dog man.
Mm.
That scares me to death. Like that, that's scary. What? I want no part of that guy.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll talk about that as well off in the lobby. So, but hey, man, we'll stop it here. Is that good?
Yeah. I
All right.
appreciate you having me on, man.
Dude, man, it was a pleasure. I'm so glad that Josh gave me your number so I could reach out to you. And he was like, "Yeah, I had this great guy on. He was West Virginia and corrections officer." I go, man,
The best people in the country right here, man. Best people
I
in the
got
country.
this. Absolutely. Hey, I'll tell you right now, man. John
Everybody out there watching, don't believe the wrong turn stuff and all that stuff. Like, we're not like that. There's good people here.
You got a lot of good people, but I will tell you, man, because I know firsthand. You go down the wrong holler.
Oh no, you can get took care of around here real quick.
Oh yeah, I'm telling you, you could go down one holler. It'd be, "Hey, you want to stop in? We're getting ready to have a cookout. You want to eat?" Then you go to the other holler, and you got everybody standing out on their porch looking at you like, "Oh, okay."
Well, not everything that goes on around here is legal, neither.
No, come on, man. Everybody there is law-abiding citizens. Come on now.
Right.
Don't put that stigma on them people.
Yeah. Hey, Popcorn Sutton. A lot of people paid attention to what he was doing around here.
I'll tell you. How many people do you think ran interference for Popcorn?
Oh, I don't know. We're getting off on something different. They left Popcorn alone for a while though, and then later on kind of came down.
Absolutely, they did, man. So, all right, man. I'm gonna end the show here. Hold on 1 second. Stay in the lobby. I'll bring you back on after the show stops recording. Okay. All right, man. Hang on 1 second. All right, guys, that's our show for tonight, man. I told you this is a cool guest. This is a cool story. It's not often that that you hear as a kid goes out bows hunt and gets himself a deer, and only for him to come back and it's gone. And then a month or so later, he comes back, and then there is a trophy waiting for him at the base of his deer stand. You guys, again, thank you so much for joining the show tonight. Hey, everybody has an experience, and they want to talk about it. This is a safe place to come to. Everybody's experience is not the same. So if you want to go ahead and come on the show and share your encounter, the Cryptid Podcast 72 at gmail.com. Again, thank you everybody for joining. Remember, I have a new membership up, $2.99 a month, and you will be getting a exclusive member-only Saturday release. Until then, everybody, as my buddy Josh always says, stay prayed up. And as I like to say, remember, a legend always starts with what? A sighting. You guys have a good night. I'll talk to you later.
I got a strange going on out here. Something just killed my dog.
Something killed your dog?